Let's see. The last video game I reviewed was a fighting game about anime characters punching each other so hard they blew up planets. I feel it's only right to follow that up with a charming platformer about a girl climbing a mountain and dealing with her own depression. Those go hand in hand, right?
Celeste is a new platformer from Matt Makes Games, the same studio behind Towerfall, and like most platformers, it largely revolves around jumping. In fact, that's pretty much all you can do in the game. You can jump, you can air dash, but you can only do it once before you have to recharge the ability by touching the ground, and you can grip the sides of walls to climb up them or bounce off. But you do have an invisible stamina meter when you're climbing walls, and if you see yourself start flashing red, you have about 1 second to get to safety before you fall to your death. And that's pretty much it. You don't get any additional powers throughout the game. These are the only abilities you'll have on every level. However, each level will throw new items or maze constructs that will give you new ways to go through that particular level, such as gems that you can grab onto in the air in order to recharge your dash, clouds to jump on, blue orbs that give you a brief launch, red orbs that send you flying infinitely in any direction until you hit the wall, and much more. Again, it doesn't sound like much, however, every single room is basically a puzzle that you have to solve with only the tools that you've already been given, and none of these puzzles are copy and pasted. Every single one of them is unique. Every single room that you walk into will require you to jump and dash in ways that will make you really think. I'm not kidding, there were so many times that I walked into a room and saw a strawberry floating there, and all I could think was, oh, how the hell do I get over there? And yes, you did hear correctly, even though the purpose of each level is simply to reach the end, there are strawberries all over every single room to collect, and the strawberries do nothing. Well, they do change one line of dialogue at the very end of the game, depending on how many of them you were able to collect, but that's it. In fact, the game even tells you straight up that they do nothing. They tell you that in a loading screen just so that you won't go insane trying to collect them all. They are there solely for bragging rights. So I have to give this game credit for being honest, but there are so many of them to collect that without more of an immediate sense of accomplishment or reward, I really didn't feel any need to keep collecting them. Although if you are a big collection junkie, the strawberries are just the beginning. There are tons of things to collect, and the design of these levels actually plays into that perfectly. Each map is a labyrinth with hidden pathways leading you sometimes to a secret room and sometimes going to totally different sides of the map that exist solely for you to explore and find more secrets. There were so many times looking through these levels that I honestly had no idea which path was the actual way forward and which was the secret passageway that led to more strawberries. Although honestly, as cool as this is, there are times it can get frustrating because you'll find yourself backtracking and trying to remember, did I already go this way? There are moments where exploring these levels feels amazing. It feels like you really are exploring uncharted territories and discovering something new around every corner. And there are other moments where it feels like you're lost in a mall, going around in circles, desperately looking for a map. So the way they construct each of these puzzles and levels to take full advantage of these few abilities that you have is impressive, but what's really incredible about this game is the story and the message. This is a game about a girl called Madeline, although you can name her whatever you want, and she has to climb Mount Celeste. Now, the thing about Mount Celeste is that it brings out what's inside you. Quite literally, your inner demons, the issues you're dealing with, the mountain gives them shape. And Madeline is dealing with clinical depression and suffers from panic attacks. So the mountain takes on twisted shapes to reflect how she feels, and she even has to confront all the negative thoughts in her mind given a life of its own. All of this ends up turning into a long story that's all about dealing with depression and panic attacks, and I actually know people in real life who suffer from both of those, and yeah, this game nailed it. There's even a mini game in here that's meant to represent a breathing exercise that people go through to deal with panic attacks, and the story will take twists and turns meant to crush your heart and make you want to give up, which is how people who suffer from these conditions feel on a daily basis. And the supporting characters in this game really add to who Madeline is and let you get inside her mind. For example, there are very brief moments in here where they hint back to people who Madeline knew back home, and it lets you know what she was like living with this day to day, what she was like when she was just at home and not climbing a mountain. And her climbing companion she runs into from time to time, Theo, is one of the most charming characters in any game I've played this year, and the relationship he has with Madeline, watching him help her through panic attacks, watching him be the most upbeat, positive hipster you've ever met to perfectly balance our protagonist, made you want to see these two overcome every obstacle in their way together.
The story of Celeste, combined with the creative levels that really plays into the overall theme of this entire game, really does make this one of the most emotional, creative, heartwarming, touching, moving games that has ever made me want to chuck my controller through the wall and scream so many obscenities into a paper bag I run out of all the ones I know and am forced to create new ones. Oh yeah. You can't talk about this game without bringing up the insane levels of difficulty. Remember last year when everyone was talking about how difficult Cuphead was? I know I should wait a few weeks to fully make up my mind on this and let myself cool down a bit, but I am convinced this is harder than Cuphead. This is Super Meat Boy levels of difficulty. I ended up dying in 7 hours of gameplay over 1,500 times, and I didn't even do the post-game content, which is supposed to be even harder. So far, you've just been watching footage of me successfully getting through each screen. Here's the actual unedited footage. This goes on for some time.
The amount of things that can kill you on each screen is overwhelming, and the speed that you have to move at means you have to react with split-second instincts. You have to nail the exact jump at the exact pixel to be able to get through these screens. And honestly, I'm kind of torn on this because normally I don't complain about difficulty unless I feel like it's unfair. And the difficulty in here is insane, but it's doable. You can see what they want you to accomplish. You can see what you have to do to make it through a level, and you just have to learn how to move fast enough and react exactly when you need to. So I don't feel like it's a negative, it's just challenging, and if you enjoy those types of games, then you'll love this. Except normally, games this difficult aren't big emotional journeys that are meant to take the audience on a quest of self-discovery. They're more of silly, crazy, just for fun games that are meant solely to challenge you and to be wacky fun. They're not exactly about the story. This game is about the story, so making a game so hard it's very likely most of the people playing it won't complete the story. Yeah, maybe it wasn't the right type of game to make this hard, but on the other hand, the story actually ties into this difficulty. As I said, this is about a girl who suffers from panic attacks, and when this game is so hard, it makes you feel anxiety creeping up on you. Well, maybe this was all on purpose. This is about a girl who suffers from depression, which can constantly make you think, I'm not good enough, I'll never be able to do this, and I literally had a moment playing this game where I stopped and said out loud, what if I just can't do this? What if I can never do this and I'm not good enough? And then I stopped, realized what I said, and I thought, oh, that's kind of genius, video game. Cruel, but genius. However, I do have to say there are slight technical issues with this game, and yeah, they can make that difficulty unfair at times. I played this on the PlayStation and I used the thumbsticks to move the whole time because it's just what I'm used to, and you can jump and move in 8 directions, up, down, left, right, and the 4 diagonal directions. However, after playing this for a bit, I realized, oh, this was meant to be played using directional buttons, not the thumbstick. Because if you press even slightly off of up, down, left, or right, you're going to accidentally go diagonally when you didn't want to, and as I said, this is a game where you can't accidentally go in a direction you didn't want to. I died on one screen so many times because the speed at which I had to move the thumbstick from left to up made it next to impossible to not press it diagonally. So I actually had to give up on the thumbstick, and I had to reteach myself how to use the directional buttons for the first time in years, as if I was picking up a controller for the first time in my life so that I could jump correctly, and I don't mind telling you, my giant ass ape hands made that rather difficult. Also, this game plays great most of the time, but I did run into some glitches. Sometimes when a ton of stuff was going wrong, I noticed the music started jumping back and forth and repeating frames over and over, and at first I actually thought, oh, that's pretty cool. They're purposely screwing up the music and making the screen glitch at this very intense moment to give me this feeling of having a panic attack at this very stressful scene. That's genius. Only for me to realize, nope, that's not on purpose, the game is just kind of broken. When in the middle of a boss fight, 5, 4, 3, 2. Yep, that's a hard freeze. It's the only one I ran into, but after that, it made me hold my breath every time that the game started slowing down and the music started to skip. So yes, the difficulty of this game might not be a negative, but it is something that can turn certain players off, and the few small technical problems don't help. But as I said, the point of this game is the story, and that difficulty actually helps with the message behind all this. And even if you don't enjoy the difficulty of this game, the charm of it will keep you coming back for more. As I said, these characters and their interactions are amazing, but honestly, I wish I had more of that. The number of characters that you run into aren't that great, and the number of times that you speak to them is just enough to make me say, oh, that's really sweet, but not enough to make me love it. Like there's one moment where Madeline sits down and just talks with Theo, and you get to stay up all night long and you control both of their choices in dialogue. You get to craft an entire scene between the two of them as they explore their backstories, and it's amazing. It's one of the best moments in the game, but that's it. That's the only time we get a moment like that in the game, and I really wish we had had more. Or there's a moment where it hints at the emotional journey Theo is going on, but yeah, that never really gets resolved or explored. At least not in what I played. I do have to point out there's tons of post-game and bonus content I didn't get to play through yet because, well, holy cow, the main storyline is hard enough. The bonus stuff is going to be next to impossible. However, even if I wish this game had more content, what is here is amazing. This is all a story about dealing with the negative thoughts and sides of yourself, of not really overcoming it, but just realizing to accept it and being okay with who you are, the good and the bad, and that message is incredible, and it is delivered in a way that has sincerity and care dripping off every line. It almost feels like this game really wants to not only provide an experience for people who suffer with these conditions so that they can relate to it, but also it wanted to be educational to people who have no idea what it's like to live with this. I just wish it had been in a game that was maybe more accessible to the general audience, because I feel that that message is important, but I feel like the difficulty of this game is going to end up serving as a barrier to most players who really do need to experience it. But then again, that's what Let's Plays are for, and as I said, it does kind of actually play into the theme of the game itself. So I'm going to give this game a 9 out of 10 because it is truly an incredible experience, not just for the story, but also because despite the glitches and the controller problems, this game's design is so well thought out, it blew me away. But to give it a perfect 10, I just wish we had more characters and bonding moments between them. Thanks for joining us on this review today, everyone. And if you want more from me, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and you share these videos around the web. It's the best way to help promote our channel. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/ProfessorThorgi. But you can also join me as we play through video games together on Twitch at twitch.tv/ProfessorThorgi every single weekend. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.